In this video, we get to finally solve by square roots. So to solve a quadratic equation, using a square root, you need two things. One, you need to get the perfect square alone or isolated on one side of the equal sign, and then square root both sides. First thing, the perfect square here does not necessarily just need to be x. Okay, we'll see that as we get going through some of these, like specifically number 37. Doesn't need to be just x. But since we are square rooting both sides, that's where this next piece comes in. You're going to get two separate answers, one positive, one negative. So in number 35 here, I got to get the x squared term by itself. Start by subtracting 3. That gets me to here. The x squared term is still not by itself enough. There's that negative 5 that I do not want. So I divide both sides by negative 5. And I get a fraction. That's fine. You can have fractions. Now is when I take the square root of both sides to give me x equals the square root of 12 fifths. Well, I'm just going to write it as square root of 12 or square root of 5 right away. If you want, you can simplify this fraction now. The square root of 12 part now. If you don't want to, you don't have to. I'm going to choose not to just because. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. I multiply top and bottom by the square root of 5 because I'm multiplying by 1. I'm not changing anything. But now this top, I'm going to have as square root of 12 times 5. On the bottom, I get just plain old 5. Square root of 5 times square root of 5 is 5. The square root of 12 times 5, I can write it as 2 times 2 times 3 times 5. Where 2 times 2 is 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 5 is the same thing as 12 times 5. But what I'm really doing there is just trying to find my perfect square. So 2 times 2 gives me 4. 4 is my perfect square factor. One of those is going to break out. So the square root of 4 was 2. So one of those 2's break out. And I'm left with that 3 times 5 on the inside and a 5 on the bottom. Okay, but something that I have not written down once yet, going back to right here, is the plus or minus. And this is something that I'm going to be as guilty of on occasion as other people, is forgetting to write our plus or minus. My final answer is plus or minus 2 square root of 15 over 5. It's best practice to write this plus or minus in here all throughout the problem. The reason why it's best practice to do that is because everybody gets distracted at some point and will forget to go back and write it in their final answer. If you do that, you are giving one of two solutions, which means you're at best 50% right. Okay, don't put yourself in that situation, just like I almost did. Make sure you do plus or minus all the way back. Once you write square root of both sides, your next step should have a plus or minus symbol. For number 36, I'm going to add 6 to both sides and divide by 4. Now I end up with a 12 again, so I kind of already see where this is going to go. I square up both sides. It gives me x is equal to plus or minus. And I'm going to just jump right to 12 is 4 times 3. X equals plus or minus 2 square root 3. The square root of 4 is 2. That's where that 2 comes from. There's no more square root of 4. Square root of 3 cannot be simplified any further. But now 37. This is where I said we have to start getting the perfect squared term isolated. I'm going to treat this entire piece just like I did in that last problem. So I'm going to start by subtracting 4 from both sides. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 3. That leaves me with x minus 2 squared equals 16. When I take the square root of both sides, just to get rid of that squared piece, I'm left with an x minus 2 on the left equals plus or minus 4 on the right. This is another place where people are going to forget plus or minus because you hear square root of 16 is 4 all the time. Square root of 16 is 4, but it also could have been negative 4 because I'm asking what numbers multiplied together to give me 16, not to give me the positive square root of 16, what gave me 16. Now I add 2 to both sides, and as I've talked about in a previous video, I always put that in front of the plus or minus. This is not an acceptable answer yet because you're not done. This means x equals 2 plus 4, or x equals 2 minus 4, which is 6, or negative 2. If there's no i's that show up, you need to actually add or subtract those things together to fully simplify. Okay, we've got 2 more problems we'll go through real quick. Number 38, there's no adding or subtracting that has to happen, so I'm going to start by multiplying both sides by 2. This is the same thing as dividing both sides by 1/2. Okay, it just gets rid of that piece right there. X plus 4 squared is equal to 16. So square both sides, just like the last problem. This leaves me with x plus 4 equals plus or minus 4. Subtract 4 from both sides. This is going to give me negative 4 plus 4, or negative 4 minus 4. You don't necessarily need to write this line out all the time, as long as you remember to do it. This is going to tell me x equals 0, or x equals negative 8. Okay, I can plug those numbers back in just to verify that when I do the left side order of operations, it'll give me the 8 that is on the right side. And then number 39, add 5 to both sides. Divide both sides by negative 2. And now I'm going to be in a situation I have not been in yet. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And Algebra 1 says you can't do this because they don't know what the complex number system is. But we do know what the complex number system is now, so I'm going to get x plus 6 equals plus or minus the square root of negative 4. That's a thing. I'm going to immediately change that to plus or minus I root 4. Just whether I write that part down or in my head, doesn't really matter. But the square root of 4 is 2. So this is actually plus or minus 2i. Subtract 6 from both sides. Put that in front of the plus or minus. I cannot combine these because they are not like terms, unlike the last problem. Okay, I have an I that's just part of my answer at this point. Make sure I have my plus or minus symbol. Hope everybody has a great day.